I know I shouldn't take Daniel's comment that he wanted to make friends on his own personally, but I couldn't help but feel insulted nonetheless. Granted, I had my own ups and downs with them last year, but even after everything that had happened, despite rumors that I had attacked them, and despite the fact that just knowing me put them in danger, they still wanted to be my friend. As much as I hated to admit it, most people had made up their mind about me as soon as the rumors broke that I married Grabiner my freshman year. After that, I was no longer a student. Now I was a teacher's wife, and I've heard more than one whisper saying that he was the only reason that I received as many merits as I did. But I couldn't let their comments get to me. People were probably going to use that against me my whole life and sum up all of my hard work as simply the benefits that came with being married to a noble. I couldn't control what people said about me, but I could control how I reacted to it, and I could make sure that I didn't let it get to me. But as I approached Hieronymous's door, I can't help but let it bother me, just a little. Daniel didn't know who I was. Daniel didn't know I was married to Hieronymus, at least not yet. If he didn't like me, or if he thought I did a bad job of getting him acclimated to his new life in America, what did that say about me? That I really couldn't adjust to life outside of Iris Academy without Hieronymus's influence? Do you want to knock, or should I ask as we stand outside the door to Hieronymus's room. Granted, it was my room too, but it felt strange to knock on my own door. I can do it, Daniel says as he steps forward and knocks. Professor Grabiner, it's me. And Tori. I roll my eyes, but it wasn't as though Hieronymus couldn't have sensed me through the door anyway. Come in, Hieronymus calls, and Daniel opens the door to reveal Hieronymus sitting in front of a small table that had been set up in the center of the room, filled with tea and scones. Good afternoon, sir, Daniel says politely as he comes into the room. I follow him in, plopping down on the end of the bed on the far side of Hieronymus, rather than taking the seat that was placed closer to him. Tori, Hieronymus asks as he glares at me, would you care to join us at the table? I look at Daniel, who has taken to studying his sneakers, to the chair. If you insist, I say as I take the chair, making it a point to move it away from him as I sit down. So, what's up? Hieronymus rolls his eyes as if he had no patience for me as he turns his attention to Daniel. It's been 2 weeks since our last talk. What have you been up to in that time? A social visit? From Grabiner? Well, that was new. I can't help but pick up a scone and settle into my seat, mentally deciding to watch this play out with as little interference as possible. A few things, Daniel says. I had a lot of new experiences. Tori has been trying to make sure I have the full American student high school experience. I can't help but grin sheepishly. Hieronymus raises an eyebrow and glances at me before he turns back to Daniel. Such as? Daniel shuffles in his chair as if he didn't want to say. I wasn't quite sure why, although maybe it was just because it was Professor Grabiner doing the asking. I remember how awkward Elena and Virginia were when we had met them for dinner at the Glen as my husband, not my teacher. It had been a bit awkward then, and it was sufficiently awkward now. We practiced black magic in the dungeons, I remind him, trying to be helpful. And we practiced your social skills in the library, and we went to sports club, and we explored the greenhouse together, and we went to the mall. Which was your favorite? Daniel seems to think this over for a moment. The mall, he finally decides. Oh, Hieronymus asks. He sounds bored of the whole conversation, but yet he continued to ask probing questions that would force an answer to keep the conversation going. Why the mall? I think I prefer interacting with people one-on-one, Daniel says as he turns to me. I don't like an audience, like at sports club. I thought about what you said at the mall, that people don't care about me. We were holding hands and no one made a big deal of it. I don't know if that would happen if we held hands here, or if people would say things. Choosing who to associate yourself with is an important part of building your reputation, Hieronymus advises. Aside from Tori, who else have you been associating yourself with? Daniel shrugs. I've met Donald Danson and his roommate Luke a few times. Other than that, I've only really spoken to Donald's sister, Virginia, and her roommate, Ellen. He pauses for a moment. I also met a few people in sports club, but they don't seem to like me all that much. Hieronymous casts a pointed look in my direction, prompting me to explain. We got into it with Jacob and Keo again, I explain. Keo just got mad because Daniel outmaneuvered him. Ah. Hieronymous replies as he turns to address the both of us. I'm sure I don't need to remind Tori of this, but Mr. Katsura has a temper that rivals even my own. It would do you well to avoid him and not draw attention to yourself. It's up to you to decide which opportunities are important for you to partake in and which might draw unwanted attention your way. Hey, hang on, I say, leaning forward. So, what? Keo pitches a fit and suddenly Daniel should stay at a sports club because Keo is a sore loser? That's not fair. Life, as I'm sure you're well aware, Tori, is not fair. Hieronymous says simply as he turns back to Daniel. If you're looking to extend your social circle, I have it on good authority that a student by the name of Minnie Cochran is in the library most weekends. She is class president in Tori's year, and she would be more than willing to assist you with any of your academic pursuits. I cross my arms over my chest and scowl as I stare at the front door, just trying to give my eyes somewhere to focus on so I wasn't looking at either of them. I wasn't going to undermine Hieronymous right in front of... Oh, I saw Tori talking to Minnie in the library earlier. She told me to stay away from her. Screw that, yes I was. Minnie is bad news, I say quietly, my voice barely above a whisper as I turn back to Hieronymous. Minnie can't keep a secret to save her life. Maybe you have not forgotten what happened on Monday, April 7th, but I have not. You remember the exact day? Daniel asks dubiously. And, I continue to Hieronymous, if you remember, last year, April 7th was a Thursday, and we had other problems to take care of then. But I didn't forget. I just didn't feel the need to bring it up with everything else that was going on. Hieronymous is silent as Daniel glances between us. Can I ask what happened that was so bad, he ventures? It sounds like things got really personal. I'd tell you, I venture, but then I would have to wipe your memories and make you forget, and I'm not exactly an expert at memory spells. Who knows what else could get lost in there? Tori, Hieronymous scolds, although the authority in his voice is purely Professor Grabiner. The boy is right. What happened between you and Miss Cochran is personal in nature, and he should not concern himself with being caught up in your feud. He turns to address Daniel directly. Despite what Tori would have you believe, you do have a choice in this matter. You can let Tori address both your social and academic needs, or you can allow Tori to continue your social education while Miss Cochran assists you with your studies. Daniel seems to hesitate as he considers this. He had already insulted my friends, and we hadn't done much review of any spells together. I can tell he's probably reticent to make a decision that would reflect poorly on me right in front of Professor Grabiner, so I decide to just take the high road and put him out of his misery. You don't have to decide right away, I tell him, as cheerfully as I can muster. You can tell Professor Grabiner what you decide in the morning if you'd rather go to the library and study with Minnie instead of me. Actually, Daniel begins slowly, I trust you. I'd like to keep studying with you if I'm not taking up too much of your time. What? Of course you're not. I pause for a moment as I really think about what to say to him. But I do want you to know that I appreciate that, Daniel. Not only because you're my friend, but because I do take my charge to look after you here seriously. I know it must be hard to trust me when I won't tell you exactly what went on back then, but I am deeply appreciative that you're deferring to my judgment on who you can and cannot trust here. Once you're officially a freshman and classes start, you're going to have to make more of those decisions for yourself, but I'm honored that you've put your trust in me to help you navigate you through at least orientation for the next few weeks at the very least. Daniel just blushes as he chews on a scone. Thanks. I guess. The atmosphere in the room feels sufficiently awkward, but I try to push past it. So, what about this week? What would you like to work on this week? I want to meet more people, Daniel says. I feel like I don't really know anyone here. I can focus more on my studies when school starts. Right now, I just want to feel like I fit in. I wait for Hieronymous to interject, but unfortunately, he says nothing. I sit for a moment and think hard, trying to come up with an excuse as to why this is a bad idea without directly telling him that I don't exactly have a good reputation myself, and I don't really know that many people. That's a great idea, I say suddenly, and my enthusiasm seems to catch both of them off guard. In the morning, I'll go to Professor Potsdam and see if she has a list of any other incoming freshmen that have arrived here earlier than scheduled. Maybe we can make you like a little club or something for incoming freshmen so you can all bond or whatever before the school year begins. I'd like that, Daniel replies. The atmosphere feels less tense now, but I'm still not sure what to say next. Fortunately, it seems that Hieronymous has had enough of our social hour for one night. As your guardians during your brief stay here, Hieronymous reminds him, please do your best to stay out of trouble and come to us if you have any questions on decorum before asking your peers. Is that understood? Yeah, I understand, Daniel says, and Hieronymous seems satisfied with his answer as he settles back in his chair. Do you have any more questions for us at this time? He asks, but Daniel just shakes his head. Good. That will be all then, Mr. Callister. I have some things to discuss with Tori, but I hope you will continue to act in a way that will make your parents proud and does not invite comment on either of us. Understood, sir, Daniel says as he turns to me. See you tomorrow, Tori. I give him a quick wave and fall silent as I watch him head out the door. As soon as he leaves, Hieronymous lets out the sigh that he had been holding in for far too long. We're going to have a talk now, aren't we? I ask him. Hieronymous shoots me a look, and I don't have to think twice about what this one means. That's a yes.